Hey guys, welcome back to CLOWNFISH TV. This is Kneon. We're going to dip back in on The Last of Us Part 2. We haven't talked about it for a couple of days, really because there hasn't been much to talk about. The game came out, the game sold really well at the beginning. We're going to talk about that. Critics and fans are divided on what they think about this game, and it's going to be interesting to see if this becomes the new Last Jedi. I really do think it's going to be the new Last Jedi. It's the Last Jedi for gaming consoles, where critics have absolutely loved this game for the most part, but many players did not like the game, including PewDiePie. PewDiePie did not like The Last of Us Part 2 all that well. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about an 80% decline in sales in the UK second week, and some other drama around some YouTubers and IGN. Salty IGN, which is losing relevance daily, losing relevance to YouTubers who cover gaming news, in my opinion. So before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're almost at 125,000 subs, hoping to get there very soon. Haven't asked for subs for a while, but please do so. Make sure that the channel gets found, we get seen, we can keep on trucking over here at the reef. This is coming from Game Rant. PewDiePie calls The Last of Us 2 a mess, scores it out of 10. Popular YouTuber PewDiePie finishes his stream of The Last of Us 2, offering his opinion and giving the game a score out of 10. He's had like tens of thousands of people watching him play Last of Us Part 2. I think the most people he had on when I was watching him play it was like 100,000 people. That's a lot of people. You know, his platform carries a lot of weight. So to have him come out and say, hey, it wasn't that great of a game, you know, it is what it is, right? He's a professional gamer, I guess. Is he still a professional gamer? And he gave his opinion on the game after playing through it, after purchasing a copy. I don't know if they gave him a copy or he purchased it. He played through it, decided he didn't like it, but he didn't give it like a 1. So it's a little more believable when somebody gives it a middling review. So prior to launch, Naughty Dog acknowledged that The Last of Us 2 would be a divisive game. They had no idea. Well, maybe they did. Maybe they did. And so far, that prediction has proven to be correct. While professional critics have showered The Last of Us 2 in praise, and the game has been a massive sales success, we'll talk about that, there are some very vocal detractors who have spoken out against the title for one reason or another. The Last of Us 2 has even been review bombed on Metacritic. We've heard this before with Captain Marvel, we've heard it before with The Last Jedi, dropping its user score to an abysmal 3.4 compared to the impressive 9.5 critic average. Now, it's actually gone up. The user score, it's at 4.9. That's still not great, but it has a 94 on Metascore based on 110 critical reviews. I don't know if PewDiePie counts or not. Have no idea. Everyone's been offering their opinion on The Last of Us 2, and that includes popular YouTuber PewDiePie, who's been live streaming his playthrough of the game. PewDiePie recently completed his playthrough and has revealed his thoughts on the game. PewDiePie says, "I think everything was a mess, so I didn't have much expectations after that," PewDiePie said after completing The Last of Us 2. He then went on to single out the way The Last of Us 2's story was structured as the main reason why the game didn't land with him. If they just changed the order of things, I think it would be better, maybe tighten up some parts. I guess I would rather play this game than a really mediocre game, even though I really didn't like it. He also said he wouldn't play through The Last of Us 2 again, but would consider it if the game had been a little shorter. Yeah, he didn't seem too thrilled. He really didn't. PewDiePie had some praise for the game. For example, he said it was a good thing that The Last of Us 2 featured a same-sex couple and was going to be played by millions of people. He added they had a lot of fun streaming the game as well. Ultimately, he rated The Last of Us 2 a 6 out of 10, stated he didn't hate it. He didn't hate it. So PewDiePie now streams exclusively on YouTube and plans on streaming more PlayStation exclusives in the future. Specifically, he stated he's looking forward to playing the upcoming Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch. So, yeah, I don't know. I have to agree with Game Rant in this regard. It'll be interesting to see how the public reaction to The Last of Us 2 changes with time. I'm hearing that a lot of people are dumping used copies of it. That's what I've been hearing. I haven't been able to verify that. It's possible that detractors will have a higher opinion of it when they have a bit more time to process the more controversial story decisions. And on the flip side, maybe those who like the game will find it less appealing in retrospect. Again, just like The Last Jedi. You know, they kept telling people, well, maybe the detractors will like it once they have time to digest what they've done to Luke and they go back and rewatch it. And I gotta tell you, watching The Last Jedi again after having seen it in the movie theater a year later, it was like, yeah, this movie is actually worse than I thought it was when I went to go see it in the theater. But, you know, who knows? Who knows? People's opinions change. But it's not looking too good. It's going to be a very divisive game. Now, it did sell. The remastered version of the first game is actually picking up sales now too because of the second game. That tends to happen. The PlayStation blog crowing about how they sold more than 4 million copies of it. Of course they did. Everybody wanted this game because of the goodwill of the first game. Again, very similar to The Last Jedi. People were, you know, kind of on board with the Disney sequel trilogy. A lot of people were. Most people, I think, were. After The Force Awakens, and they got The Last Jedi, and then we saw what happened with The Rise of Skywalker. Now, here's the thing. The Last of Us Part 2 sales dropped 80% week on week in the UK, so that's a pretty steep drop. Apparently, though, this is normal. I think this happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. Like, everybody that wanted the game bought the game at launch. They pre-ordered the game, and then the following week, it just kind of petered out a little bit. You know, once the word of mouth got out there, once everybody, you know, was playing it. I'm not exactly sure where it's at right now. I don't hear anybody talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake, to tell you the truth. So The Last of Us Part 2 sold around 4 million copies in the first 3 days. With that number, the game became the fastest selling game for the PS4. Its sales, however, have dropped 80% week on week, which is a huge fall, but not unusual, they say. The figures are for the UK as compiled by GFK. Keep in mind, these are based on box sales only and not digital sales. Although The Last of Us Part 2 was the #1 game last week, the game's sales dropped by a huge margin. Although The Last of Us Part 2 was the #1 game last week, the game's sales dropped by a huge margin. The game has topped the UK charts for 2 consecutive weeks now, but it's likely to lose its place next week. As GameIndustry.biz mentions, although 80% is a huge fall, it's not unusual for a game that sold so well during its first week. Now, what's interesting was what's on its tail. The Last of Us Part 2 fends off Bravely Second. Yeah, it's an old game. 3DS adventure game is back with a bang. In a very odd turn of events, Square Enix's 2015 RPG Bravely Second End Layer has rocketed back up the UK chart, slamming into the #2 spot some 5 years after its original release. This bizarre feat was achieved due to a huge sell-off of stock at UK retailer Argos, who were offering the Nintendo 3DS title for a pithy $2.49, roughly $5 US. An understandable slew of sales then saw the title jam back into the top 40. So if The Last of Us 2 starts dropping again, all you got to do is sell it for $1, and you'll get those sales numbers back up. So that's kind of funny. So Last of Us Part 2 was #1, Bravely Second. $5 game was #2. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, #3. Ring Fit Adventure, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Mario Kart 8, Grand Theft Auto 5, and they're bringing it out again for the PS5, Last of Us Remastered, and Minecraft. So there was a little bit of controversy about the numbers and the sales and YouTube and all of that. Zachary Ryan from IGN was kind of salty. He said that a lot of people aren't talking about the numbers, that the game sold really well. And apparently he had to backpedal a little bit because he didn't understand what was going on with the DCMA takedowns, which was a huge part of the backlash. The fact that Naughty Dog was striking any YouTube channels that talked about this game in any regard. Like, you didn't have to show any game footage. You could just talk about the game, give opinions on the game, talk about the spoilers, not show the footage, say that it was there were alleged leaks, but you couldn't verify it, and they would strike your channel. I know several YouTubers who were struck, and that's a huge part of the reason why I have no interest in buying this game myself. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to give them my money. I think they were complete douchebags during this whole process. But Zachary Ryan from IGN said, last thing I'll say about Last of Us 2, I think it's pretty fucking interesting that to certain YouTuber dudes that have profited from slamming this game into the ground for months, They don't have the guts to report on sales after encouraging their fans to review bomb and talk shit all year. Did YouTubers? I don't know if YouTubers did or not. We never told people to review bomb the game. I have no idea. We don't talk about it nearly as much as some people do, but we never encourage people to review bomb it. And I think we've talked about the sales numbers before. So he just seems very, very salty. I think a lot of these journalists are very, very salty these days because YouTubers are basically replacing them. And they'd rather the public eat up their opinions, play the games they want them to play, than to listen to some YouTubers. Because, you know, God forbid you have any independent thought when you cover pop culture news. All right, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we will talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.